Welcome to the Azure Lab, a demo lab that you can see. In this demo lab, you can see how we're going to deploy the virtual machines in on Azure Cloud, and what are the different options available, and a brief detail about all the options, what to choose, what not to choose while deploying the virtual machine, and also we will deploy the virtual machine using the PowerShell. So let's quickly jump onto the Azure portal and let's start our VM deployment. The first thing you're gonna go to the portal dot. I think I already have open here. If I don't have open, let's say I go to portal.azure.com. So this is a site. You click on this site. I'm already logged in, so it's take me right to the uh, uh, Azure interface, and you can see I logged in as this is my account, and let's go to let's see my account details. Like let's say view my bill. If you click on subscription, you can see what is my subscription. As you can see, name is pay as you go. But in your case, if you are using the Azure for the first time, you can always open a free account, which is available for 60 days, I think, 60 days or 90 days with some credit. That is more than enough for the to practice your lab. So this is in my case is pay as you go is a different account, but in your case probably it's a free account with some free credit. We will cover that how to create that free account in another chapter. But let's go during for this lab for this demo. Let's see how we can deploy the virtual machine in the Azure platform. So when you can see on the virtual machine, virtual network, virtual machine, you basically click on virtual machine and simple, you just click on add and it will give you the option to add the create a virtual machine. Um, as you can see, the first option is subscription. Subscription is basically your account with Azure. My is pay as you go. This is my account name. If you have more than one account, it will list here and you can choose and you can switch between the accounts. My case, I have just one of them. And resource group is basically a group of all the resources you create. Let's say I don't have any resource group. What I can do, just click on create new, and I can name it, for example, demo VM lab. You can name it anything. It's just an entity for the resources that you're going to use. So I just put demo VM lab. So click OK. It just create the resource group name for you. Second option is to create a virtual machine. So you can just say demo VM, let's say demo VM lab. I'll just name it. Region is also very important, which region you're choosing. I just choose East US, which is the closest. You can choose depending upon where you are. So let's choose East US and infrastructure redundancy availability options. We will cover that in more details when we're going to do the deep dive on virtual machine. Just for now, you can leave as it is. And then there's the image, which image you want to deploy. For example, here by default, I say so Ubuntu says, but if you want to see what other images are available, there are a whole list of images. You can click on browse and basically you can search your images. Let's say I'm interested in Windows, I don't know, 2016 or 2012. Let's say 2012, 2016. Let's say if I click on 2016, so 2016 is been selected. So this is an image I'm going to use, and this is a name. This is a region where I'm located, and this is the resource group that I selected so far. The next option is to basically the disk, the size of your VM. As you can see, by default, it's one CPU and 3.5 gig memory. You can always click on change and choose whatever you want to choose. There are many options. You can sort by cost, more cost, less cost, high RAM or low RAM, 16 gig RAM is going to cost you this much. So it depends what is your requirement for the solution. But for the demo purpose, I just going to keep as default, and that is administrator account. So you can just name your administrator account. Let's say you want to do the same thing, demo VM lab, and then the password is, let's say, choose password. It's very important that you choose a password that you remember. Uh, Ideally, I always choose password with a P capital at the rate of 1 to 3. It meets all the requirements and easy to remember. So the password with a P capital at the rate of 1 to 3 fulfill the requirements for Azure, and it's easy to remember. So I choose that password. This administrative account is basically the account that you're going to use to log into your virtual machine. Um, then there are going to be inbound port rules that you want to attach to it. We're going to cover that in networking in more details. For now, I'm not interested on any of those rules. I'm just click on none. And this thing is very important to save money. What it says that if you have the license, let's say you already have a license for 2016 server, you can basically add your license here, right? If you click it, and you can add your license here. Once you add your license, you can save 49% on the license. It's a big saving. If you already have license, you can use your existing license and save money. um, so those are the options here. Now let's go to the next option. Let's say you have a disk. Click on disk. Under the disk, what kind of disk you want to use? Let's say the OS disk is premium SSD. There are three options: premium SSD, standard SSD, and HDD. HDD is, of course, is cheap compared to SSD or premium SSD. Premium SSD handle more IOPs than standard SSD, and SSD is faster, of course, than HDD, but of course, little expensive as well. So it depends what your options are. If it's a production server, highly critical server, then choose this one. If it's a test or something you are not interested in high performance, then hard disk is also okay. So let's say we choose SSD, and now, this option is unused, unmanaged disks. It's also very important feature that you have to choose yes and no. When you said yes, it means that you want to take care of all the storage operations and manageability. And what that means that you will have your own account and you are responsible for storage IOPs and storage handling and storage manageability, and other your storage account functions. We will cover in detail in storage and the storage when we're going to cover the storage when we're going to cover the storage topic. But for now, just think of it. If you click yes, you're going to have your own storage account and handle your storage account. But if you click no, which means you want Azure to manage your disk. For example, there's no limitation of IOPs, and it is highly recommended when you have production server. You always choose no because you don't want to manage the storage IOPs, and you let the Azure to manage, and there's no limitation. So this is like a difference between managed and unmanaged. Uh, Unmanaged is basically you are not managing, but Azure is managing. Manage risk is basically you are managing at your own, and not the Azure is managing. So this is the main difference between managed and unmanaged. And then there's a data disk. This is something you want to add another disk. This is the OS type, right? And you want to add more disk. You want to attach existing disk, or you want to attach a new disk. These are both options are available. For now, we're just doing the demos. We're just going to use the OS type only. Now let's go to the next one, networking. So networking is also very important. So for example, the virtual network, what kind of network you want to involve is based on the name of the resource group. We just create one VNet that it's going to be attached to. Either you can create new one, it's up to you. If you create new one, you have to define the whole address and subnet default. You can just keep default if you want, and you click OK. And and this is a public IP. The public IP is something, the IP that is accessible over the internet. For example, if you deploy the VM, there is the IP publicly available for the VM. That basically you can basically RDP using, if you're going to use that public IP to RDP to the VM. So so of course you want to create a new public IP, create new one, okay, and network security group. So this is very important. Network security group is basically the network security group is basically what ports you allow to access the VM. Do you want to allow RDP port 8TTP port? Do you want to allow all those ports? This network security group is basically can be defined at the VM level and can also be defined at the subnet level. Again, we're going to discuss this network security group under network topic. We're going to go in deep dive and build our own network and basically attach the VMs in the private network in the front end and the back end. That is more covered under network topic. And also, for example, but these all things are attached to the VMs. For now, we don't need any of those configuration. We want to make it as simple as we can. And let's go to the explanation to the, okay, the manage. The next option is management of your VM. This is very important in terms of boot diagnostic. So boot diagnostic is something when your VM is unable to boot, for example. You have some issues, some weird screen is the VM is not booting up. So in that case, you basically it's better you always enable on that feature. What happens during the boot process? It takes small images during the boot process and save on one of your account. Let's say this is account. It's gonna create. It's gonna saving all the boot diagnostic information that help you to troubleshoot why your VM is not booting up. So it's very helpful, and it's always recommended to have that feature on, especially for the production machines, because if your VM is not booting up, so there's no way for you to troubleshoot, right? It's not something available on premises, and you can go and see the messages. It sits in the cloud, and if you don't have this boot diagnostic information, it's really tough for you to troubleshoot the issue with the booting if your VM having some boot issues. So it's highly recommended to on. There's OS guest also. If you want, you can add on as well. It give you more. It give you more troubleshooting help if you have issues within the OS. I'll just keep it off for now. Manage server identity, shutdown. You can enable the shutdown if you want. Like you want to shut down after 5 p.m. That would save some money. If your VM is up and running 24/7, it's going to be cost you, right? So you can have auto shutdown. Let's say developers working from 9 to 5, and after 5, if somebody even left VM up and running, this auto shutdown is enabled. It will shut down the VM after 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., whatever you decide. You want to enable a backup. It depends on your requirements if you want to enable a backup or you don't want to enable a backup. So next is guest configuration. This is something, extensions also very important. Sometimes you want to add on more software. For example, you want to add on IIS server. So basically, you can configure what extension you want to install on top of the base image. So this is also something very helpful if you want the servers to be ready after the deployment. Very very good feature. And then there's the tags. Tags are also very important when you have a lot when you have too many VMs and you want to sort out VMs on the tags. For example, you want to tag it as a production. You can create as a production tag or UAT tag or whatever the tag you want to give. I'm not going to give you any tag for now. Are you asking me to give you the tag? No, you don't have to. Okay, doesn't like it. God. Okay, if it's asked me to create, I'm just going to put the add production as one of the tag for the VM. I'm click next and create and review. Validation field requirement, required information is missing or not valid. So something a tag. So it doesn't. It's giving the tag. Say value. Value is let's say 0, 1. Maybe I like it now. Okay, it's asking me for the value to give. If you're putting the name, just create the value as well. So that's the summary. It is telling you this is your VM. This is standard size. If you remember, we select the size. You can always change the size. If you want to change the size, it's asking you, it's going to cost you 0.153 Canadian dollar per hour. Pricing for other VMs, you can see what other VMs cost me, if any other VMs I can choose, and also give you the summary. As a subscription is pay as you go, resource group, blah, 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 no infrastructure. Demo VM lab is a username. Disk is there's a disk you're choosing. Demo VM lab, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to give you the storage count and say, let's say if I want to click, I go through all the details. If I want to make any changes, I can always go and make changes. For example, let's say I don't want to make changes. I want to make changes here on pricing. I can click on pricing and make the changes, and or I can go to previous and I can still always make some changes here before clicking create. But we already have seen the summary. We are okay with the requirements. It's a demo VM. We don't have any predefined requirements for the solution that we need to implement. So we're just gonna go mostly by defaults. But there are some of the things you have to choose, like network, and you have to choose what is the size of your VM, your subscription, your storage account. You want the extension, yes and no. You want the boot diagnostic, no, or on and off. You have to choose all those options and just click create. It will start creating the VM for you. And you say submit deployment in progress. So basically, uh, as you can see, it start deploying create VM. Uh, uh, it's on its way, it's still doing it. You see this thing is going on, which means deployment in progress is running. So it's still running. It hasn't completed. So let it complete. Give another minute or so. In the meanwhile, what I'll do basically, I'll open my PowerShell and see if we can demonstrate the same thing using the PowerShell. Okay, console. Let me open this my PowerShell because let's see if we can achieve the same thing using the PowerShell. Uh, uh, so first things first, basically, I create login Azure account. It's asked me my username and password. I entered my username and password. Uh, let's say if I said get Azure source group. So it's created, demo VM is already created. We are created just now. So the to log into the using the PowerShell, this is the first command you ran. Login. All those commands are listed in the lab text file, so you don't have to remember those commands. All everything is listed there. So it's going to ask you first you log in. Just type this command. It will let you log in. It will look at your subscription. and then you basically set your Azure account and say my subscription is this. This is the second command you ran. Now you're in the cloud, log in the cloud, and you can see what are the resources available. As you can see, this is the one that we just created, right? So if you click on this one, it's creating the status. This is a VM that we were creating, pay as you go VM, and it's still creating status. It's still ongoing, taking its time. Uh, on the other hand, we basically log in to Azure. This is the GUI interface, right? We log in with my credentials, password. The other way to log into the Azure is through PowerShell. Okay, so I'll make a little bit bigger window, and on the background, this is still creating the VM. That the option we choose here. What we're gonna do, we log into the Azure using these commands. Again, I repeat: log into Azure. It will ask me my username, password. I just entered. It say, okay, I know you. And then it asks you, what is your subscription? I have to do this command to set my default subscription as pay as you go. And once I have this subscription as you go, I'll just run this command to see what are the resources already deployed, right? I'll just clear, for example, here. And if I do, get resource groups. So this shows me provision state is succeeded. This is my location, and this is the resource group name. And if we go back, you see it's still creating. Um, Now that VM is still ongoing, it's still creating. In the meanwhile, what we can do, we can deploy the VM using the PowerShell. So let's do uh, and uh, and deploy the VM using the PowerShell console. You will see it's much faster if you use a PowerShell. It saves you a lot of time, and I see most of the enterprise environments they are basically they have to use PowerShell. There's no way they can escape, especially when it's enterprise, when you're dealing with hundreds of VMs manageability. It's much easier. It's not that you cannot do from GUI, but some people are more comfortable and they feel that PowerShell give them way more control and make their life easy to handle and manage the Azure cloud. So let's try to let's use PowerShell and deploy the VM. In the meanwhile, let's see what is happening here. It's still creating, or it's taking a lot of time. Okay, anyways, so we logged into Azure, and I'm gonna show you how they are. These are the commands um, uh, that will be listed here and will be shared with you guys how to run this each and single command. So we already set this one. We already here. Now let's create a VM. So this is the command to create new VM. This is the resource group name. We're gonna create a new resource group. Okay, the name of the VM, just my VM, just for the demonstration. So this is another VM we are trying to deploy using the PowerShell. So let's run these commands. This will create the VM. So basically, you right click, it's ask you what is the username and password you want to give. That username and password is basically the administrator user name and password you're going to use to log into the VM. So again, I'll say demo VM lab one. I can use the same demo VM lab. Okay, and the password is password. I keep the same password 123. Okay, let me make sure I'm typing it correct. Password 123, and I click. This is the account. This is the admin account for the VM itself. I click OK. It probably like my password, and you see it's creating the resources. Creating the resource group. The first thing 3% completed. It's creating the public IP that we need to connect to the VM itself. It's creating the virtual machine network. All those resources are through this command. So you basically, instead of going back and forth in different and maybe like 20, 30 clicks, you can just run this command. It basically deploy the VM for you. Of course, you have to make those changes if you want to make changes. For example, you want to change different VM name, you want to use a different subnet or different security group. Uh, uh, it all depends upon your requirements. But generally, if you do, these are more common parameters, right? So you choose common parameters and you basically uh, 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 you're in the basically deploying the VM. So it's still, this is running, which means this VM is already deployed. And if you go back here, notifications, deployment is succeeded. What that means, you can basically click on that VM and you'll see all the properties. You see you have public IPs here, and there's also a private IP. If you click on networking, you can see this is a private IP and this is a public IP. What is the difference? The private IP is private to Azure internal for internal communication, internal usage. Public IP is basically the IP that you're going to use to connect to the VM. So it's very important for you to understand the difference between private and public IP. And yeah, so this is pretty much all the details that we already selected when we're deploying the VM. In the background, you see we are also run that small script that basically also deploying the VM in the Azure cloud. So this one we already created, and let's say we're gonna go here and click on this virtual machines. Okay, you see this my VNet, my all resources. Those are all the resources that we used. Let's go to virtual machines and you see this my VM is already creating this one. This is the one that we're creating with using this small, fancy, very smart and small script. So this one we created using the GUI. This one we are still creating using the PowerShell module, PowerShell script. So let's say if we want to go to this one, first VM, and if we want to connect to this VM, you can just click on connect. It asks me this is your public IP. You want to download RDP file, or you want to, what do you want to do? I say I'm gonna click on RDP option, and it's asked me to basically open this file, and I'm gonna click here. It's gonna say okay, you want to connect. It's asking me for the user and password. By default, it's going to use my user Amjad account, but this is not something we're going to use it. We're going to use this one. We're going to use a local and demo VM lab, and the password is hopefully it's like my password. So remember my password. So it says click on OK. I said yes, and it is basically connecting me using my public IP. Demo VM lab, please wait for settings. So basically, I'm in the VM itself. This is a demo lab that we have deployed using the VM, using the GUI interface. And you can see it's basically loading me, open the RDP sessions. Again, to connect to the VM, you go to the virtual machine, which VM you want to connect to. This is the first one we create using the GUI interface. Click on that one, and then there's an option here, connect. You click on connect, and that RDP prompt law shows you, and there you enter your basically credentials you choose while you're creating the VM. And once you enter your credentials, you are able to get into the VM using the RDP session. You see you are in the RDP session. You see this public IP is 137.117, blah blah blah. I remember 42 and 23, and if you go back, 4223. So this is the public IP for this demo VM lab, that the one we created, and we are able to RDP to that server. So this is how you create the VM. I'm just gonna close this one. It's asking, okay, disconnect. So just disconnect my RDP session from here. And so this is how you basically create and uh, choose the options, what options you want to choose for your VM, which region, blah, 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 as we discussed earlier. And once everything is deployed, you basically connect it using just connect. It's pretty straightforward, but it's really important how you choose your option and features. In the meanwhile, let's go to our PowerShell. What happens? Oh, that's good. It looks like our script worked, and it basically deployed the VM. Our VM, if you see the VM name is this one, and yeah. So using this small script, we are able to deploy the VM, and with the VM name this my VM. If you go back to our Azure, we should be able to see that VM here. We already have seen that, but let's go and see if it's created actually. Yeah, or it's still creating. This one is not ready. It's still creating. It's that one is running. We were able to RDP. This one, it's still creating. So let it wait and see once it's completed. And once it's completed, we will basically try to connect to it. Uh, okay, so it's still creating. Okay, it's taking its time. In the meanwhile, basically, we can click on virtual machines and we see this is creating, this is resource group. You see, resource group, my resource group. From where this comes? This comes from this one, resource group, because we create a new resource group. You don't have to create resource groups every time, but again, it depends how your environment is. You want to separate different resource group. You want to isolate traffic like prod resource group, UAT resource group, or dev resource group. It all depends upon your requirement, your company requirement, and the solution requirements. As you can see, this small this script that we have it here, it also asks to open the ports 3389. 3389 is RDP port. It also asks to create an IP, public IP address, security group, blah, blah, blah. So it's create all those, we define all those parameters in the PowerShell, and basically you are able to create a VM. I'm sure most of the people looking at this script like a way faster and easier to deploy the VM compare going on to the GUI, but it depends. It's personal preference. Some people like to go on GUI and do things from GUI. That's fine, or you can use your PowerShell script to deploy the VM. It's really up to you. It's your choice. But when you go into enterprise environment, it's really recommended, and it's even faster and easy if you use a PowerShell. We have all the PowerShell scripts and commands written in the lab. So you will get all those PowerShell commands and scripts that help you to deploy the VMs. Let's go back to see the status again to see where we stand. It's running finally, which means the VM is up and running. It's deployed. It was before it was creating, now it's running, which means it's ready. So this part is done. So it's asking me to let's connect to the virtual machine. First thing first, it's gonna go and check what is the IP address. It's gonna check what is the public IP address for the VM. We're gonna click run. It's gonna it say this is your public IP. You see, this is a command to find the public IP of your VM. So it say this is your public IP. I'm gonna use this public IP, copy this public IP, okay, and to connect to the computer. Basically, this is a command using a public IP. I was doing this one earlier, so I'm going to put this IP, the one that we just find out, and put it here. So I just copy. I found the IP, and then basically I use this command to RDP to the to R this command will RDP to the public IP basically. So I click this one, I click run selection, and it's asking me basically to provide my credentials. So again, by default, using this one, we have to use a different one, local only, and then we was demo lab VM. Okay, demo lab VM, and password is password with a P capital at the rate of 123. So demo lab VM. So it's password at the rate of 123. Okay, it doesn't like my login attempt. So demo lab VM is doesn't like it. So what probably we have missed here? Probably we have a different credentials. Let's go and check what are the credentials there that we have defined. Okay, so what was the name of the? It should be in the security, I think. Overview. Let's say overview. What we have in the overview? My resource group, Windows, blah blah blah, DNS name, and there should be one here. Monitoring, support and troubleshooting, reset the password. So it's asking me to reset your password. I said, okay, let's say I want to put demo VM lab and password is p password at the rate of 123 password at the rate 123. So demo VM lab. So we probably put a different username there. So let's just reset the password and say update. Starting password setup, resetting the password. Uh, so probably I think I missed that. I probably put the different username earlier. But here you can always go and reset your VM password in case you forgot, which I also did. So basically, you go to your VM and under support and troubleshooting, you will see reset option. Here you resetting the password is resetting the password now, and once it's reset, we will basically attempt to log in using that new username and password. So it's taking its time to reset the password. Let's see, still ring. Okay, a few seconds running. Okay, let it run, and in the meanwhile, I can explain you something here about how to connect to this. So what we did basically, we grab the IP address for our VM, and we basically use MSTSC, which is basically stands for RDP session, with the switch V to C, and then the IP address. Let's go back and to see if it's still resetting. Yeah, it's probably still resetting. Uh, Let it wait to complete. Okay. Still, you can always look at activities here. For example, to see the status of their activities. So this is giving you more details about what is happening. You accepted, succeeded, you create a virtual machine, blah, blah, blah. So it's like giving you all the options here, more details. It's giving you, even if you want to choose one of the options, it will give you even more details about that particular event. Uh, as you can see, it's still doing it. It's still taking its time to reset the password. My bad. I forget the username probably. I don't forget the password, but I forget the username. But that's fine. But that also tells us that we can always go back and reset the password in case we forget the password. Also, very cool feature. Um, uh, Okay, so let's go back to our desktop and let's see if we can attempt still doing it, by the way. It's taking, well, it would take because it has to change the admin password from scratch again. So that's why it's taking a lot of time. Uh, but in the meanwhile, I don't know, um, deployment succeeded. So you want to see more logs, dismiss logs. I'm going to click on more logs. See, give you some more logs. Create or update virtual machine extension, deployment. All those logs are here. Okay. Uh, the idea is to basically is to install the web server actually and basically try to connect to the web server using the PowerShell console. Um, okay, okay, finally succeeded. Okay, that's good. So it has been reset the password. So let's try one more time to see if the reset has happened. So this time we connect to the IP address of the VM and it's asking me for my, okay, no, I have to change different one, use a different one, local and demo VM lab. Password is password at the rate of 123. Okay, this time it like it. So it's giving me the prompt basically to click yes. So basically we are able to get into the VM. As you can see, this is 168, 168, 62, 170, and 6. Let's verify this is the same VM we are trying to connect. Yeah, 168, 62, 76. You can also verify the same thing if you go to the here and if you go to your virtual machines. This is your virtual machine and this is your public IP, right? 176 and 176, and this is the same RDP session we just created, right? So we are able to deploy the VM using the PowerShell, and we are able to grab the IP address, and we are able to RDP to the VM that we created using the PowerShell. So this is very nice feature, nice control. It mentioned localhost username that you use it. Now let's install the web server on the let's copy this one and we have to go here and basically let's launch the PowerShell console. Okay, doesn't like it. By default, it's PowerShell. Okay, no features. Okay, so it's gonna be PowerShell, and we're gonna use this one. Install VM feature web server. Install tools. So it's basically I ran that command, and by opening a PowerShell console from the server directly, and it starts the installation. As you can see. Uh, so just to recap, this command is basically you have to run inside the run from inside of your VM. So you log into your VM as we log in using MSDSC. Once you logged in, you copy. You can copy this one. You can install web server through command line, or you can just go to the add features, and you can do it from there as well. But since we are using everything from command line, so I just choose to run that command inside the VM. Right now this command is running inside this VM and we are able to install the HTTP. So the web server has been installed on the server, and now let's say this web server is installed, the port is already open. So what we can do basically, if we browse to this IP from my local PC, from a local PC. Now let's go. This is the Azure, right? Let's say this is a public IP for the VM where we install the IAS. We should be able to browse it. So basically what we did, we use the same public IP. Let me recap quickly on the PowerShell. First thing is we logged into our account. We set up the subscription. We ran this small script to, to deploy the VM. And once we deployed the VM, we say everything successful. We basically get the public IP of the VM, and we use that public IP to log in to the VM using this command. After we logged in, we install the web server using this command. And once we install the web server on the virtual machine, we are able to browse that virtual machine publicly from my local laptop. This is my local. I have this is my Azure page, and this is the same IP that we're able to browse. So, isn't it very cool features that we deploy the VM, you configure the web server, you're able to access the web server publicly using all command lines. These are very cool features that you can use, and you can basically help you to basically in terms of managing the Azure. That's pretty much it. So it is a time to basically if I click on get Azure, it will tell me what resources I have. I have this one. I have this one. Now, if you want to save some money, if you want to delete all those resources, you can just click on get my resources, and then you say remove Azure, or you can say you can first click this one, okay, and it will remove. Are you sure you want to remove? This is to for the cleanup activities. You want to remove the one you just created? I say yes. So instead of you going back and deleting all the resources, all the resources online one by one, going back and forth, so you don't get charged. It's much faster, much easier. You can use the same by just simple one command. What this command will do, it will remove all the resources under that resource group. The second command could be remove, let's say this one. I copy this one and I say the second command could be remove all the resources under that group, right? This one. So this one is still running. It is removing and deleting all the resources. Once this is done, the cleanup is very, very important. It's better you do the cleanup properly, and it's faster if you do using the PowerShell. In that way, you don't get charged, and you basically save some credit for further and more testing. Um, this is all for now as a demo lab to deploy the VM from the GUI interface and deploy the same VM using the PowerShell console. I think that's it for this demo lab, and hope to see you soon for the other lectures. Thanks. Bye.